when a corrupt judge tried to humiliate Clarissa Jordan in his courtroom. He had no idea he was about to become the center of a legal scandal that would shake the entire state. Clarissa, with her leather portfolio held tightly and her gaze calm, looked like easy prey to men like him. But the moment he went too far, the truth unraveled like thread from a broken gavel, and her quiet brilliance silenced the entire courthouse. Clarissa Jordan, 41, straightened her ivory blouse and smoothed her bun as she walked through the marble entryway of the Jackson County Courthouse. While most attorneys showed up with entourages and chatter, Clarissa moved like a shadow, composed, unnoticed, underestimated. She had earned her law degree more than a decade ago, spent years in legal aid, and recently joined a private firm that took on select cases with social impact. Today, she was here for one reason: to defend Bernadette Lucas, a 72-year-old widow, against a suspicious foreclosure on her family home, a home she had lived in since the Carter administration. Clarissa suspected something rotten underneath it all. She wasn't alone in that belief. "You sure you want to go head-on with these people?" asked David Traynor, a colleague who met her just outside the courtroom. His concern showed in the way he glanced toward the courtroom doors. Clarissa nodded. "Someone has to. If we don't step up, she loses everything." "Just don't trust Montgomery," David said. "He's not just hard. He's connected. They call him the Iron Judge." Judge Arthur Montgomery had sat on the bench for 23 years. Known for favoring corporate interests, his rulings had a pattern, particularly when banks and big developers were involved. Clarissa had studied him like a chessboard. She wasn't walking into this game blind. She clutched her leather folder inside. Every document, timeline, and argument had been perfectly organized. As they walked in, she saw James Kellerman sitting with his legal team, dressed in a navy pinstripe and flanked by junior attorneys. He was the managing partner of Kellerman and Rowe, the firm representing the bank. And he was here in person, something that spoke volumes. "They brought Kellerman for a foreclosure?" David whispered. Clarissa's voice was steady. "Because they know I know something." Bernadette Lucas sat quietly at the defense table, hands folded, knuckles pale with tension. Clarissa gave her a warm, reassuring smile. "All rise," the bailiff boomed. Judge Montgomery entered with practiced grandeur, black robe flowing, gray hair parted perfectly, and an expression that said, "You're already losing." "First case," the clerk announced, "State Banking Trust v. Bernadette Lucas. Foreclosure proceedings." Montgomery raised an eyebrow when he saw Clarissa at the defense table. "Counsel, identify yourselves," he said, already sounding impatient. "James Kellerman for the plaintiff." "Your Honor," Kellerman said smoothly. "Clarissa Jordan for the defense." Montgomery's smile was faint and unpleasant. "Miss Jordan, not a familiar name. You new to litigation?" "I typically serve in the Eastern District." "Today's special," Clarissa replied, evenly. "Well, let's get on with it," Montgomery said, leaning back. "Mr. Kellerman." Kellerman launched into a flawless performance, citing procedural history, missed payments, and the necessity of foreclosure. He even passed around printed timelines and color-coded graphs. Clarissa listened silently, taking minimal notes, eyes scanning for patterns not in the documents, but in the tactics. Montgomery nodded as Kellerman finished. Impeccable clarity, as always. He turned to Clarissa. "Miss Jordan." She stood. "Your Honor, we believe this foreclosure is fraudulent." Mrs. Lucas made every mortgage payment until a system upgrade at State Banking Trust began misreporting her deposits. "We have bank statements, wire confirmations, and letters sent to the bank attempting to correct the issue." Montgomery's expression was blank. "Serious claim. We have serious evidence." "Proceed," he said, his tone clipped. Clarissa presented a timeline of bank statements payments made like clockwork and the records showing they were received by the bank, yet not credited. Montgomery waved a hand. "Banks make software mistakes all the time. Hardly criminal. Except this wasn't corrected." The bank ignored her written protests, tacked on late fees, and fast-tracked the foreclosure, Clarissa said. Kellerman stood. "We've seen Ms. Jordan's paperwork. It's colorful, but lacks legal weight. Perhaps Mrs. Lucas is simply confused. At her age, cognitive decline is not uncommon. Objection. Clarissa snapped. Her medical history is private and has no relevance. Montgomery frowned. Mr. Kellerman, where did you obtain such records? General Discovery, Kellerman lied. No medical documents were filed in Discovery, Clarissa countered. This is a privacy violation and shows clear overreach. Montgomery's tone grew colder. Miss Jordan, accusations of impropriety can backfire. I'm stating facts, Your Honor. He leaned forward. You're walking a thin line. Now, unless you have something substantial, I'd like to approach the bench, Clarissa interrupted, with opposing counsel. Montgomery sighed. Approach. At the bench, she dropped her voice. We need to discuss procedural violations, including the bank's unauthorized access to private medical records, the bypassing of required mediation, and the invocation of an expedited clause that only applies in cases of borrower fraud, which we can prove does not apply here. Miss Jordan, Montgomery said slowly, I'll remind you, I determine what's relevant. Don't test my patience. I'm simply citing the law. Section 4.3 cannot apply here. And I have precedent. Montgomery leaned back. Get on with it. Back at the table, Clarissa remained calm. Your Honor, I'm submitting 3 exhibits into evidence. Go on, he said, barely looking at her. Exhibit a complete certified payment history by third-party auditors. Exhibit B internal emails from State Banking Trust outlining Project Pinecone, a targeted foreclosure plan against elderly homeowners in appreciating neighborhoods. Exhibit C property acquisition records showing a shell company named Sentinel Properties acquiring the foreclosed homes and flipping them for profit. Montgomery sat up straighter. Excuse me. These documents were obtained through a whistleblower, verified by independent investigators. You're implying criminal conspiracy? I'm not implying. I am proven. Kellerman stood, visibly rattled. These are fabricated. Objection, Clarissa said. And I have the receipts. Montgomery's face flushed. Counsel approach. At the bench again, Clarissa said quietly, We're just getting started. The whistleblower is here today. He's listed on our witness sheet, properly submitted weeks ago. You're bluffing. Call Michael Davis, she said loudly. A man in his 30s rose from the gallery and walked forward. Objection, Kellerman said. We received no such witness list. The court clerk looked nervous. She's correct, Your Honor. The list was filed and time-stamped 3 weeks ago. Montgomery turned pale. Clarissa stepped forward. Before Mr. Davis testifies, I'd like the court to note that Sentinel Properties lists as one of its majority beneficiaries Arthur Montgomery. The entire courtroom froze. Montgomery slammed his gavel. 15-minute recess. Counsel in chambers. Inside his ornate office, Montgomery hissed, This is a witch hunt. With all due respect, Clarissa said, You've implicated yourself. Kellerman fumbled for words. She's staging a sideshow to distract from missed payments. Clarissa placed 3 new documents on Montgomery's desk. Audit logs, internal strategy memos, property resale records showing net profits funneled into accounts tied to Sentinel and you. Montgomery's voice dropped to a whisper. You built this case behind my back. I worked with federal prosecutors. This case is one of 78. I was brought in because people like you wouldn't suspect someone like me. A knock at the door. 2 FBI agents entered, flashing badges. Judge Arthur Montgomery. We have a warrant. He turned to Clarissa. You set me up. No, Your Honor. You walked right in. Moments later, Kellerman asked, Can I call my lawyer? I'd suggest finding someone not on your payroll, Clarissa replied. Back in the courtroom, murmurs broke into chaos as agents led Montgomery and Kellerman away. Mrs. Lucas looked at Clarissa, her eyes wide. What just happened? Clarissa smiled. Justice. Later that week, headlines exploded with news of the Pinecone scandal. Montgomery resigned. Kellerman was indicted. Sentinel Properties was under federal investigation. State banking trusts' stock collapsed. 1 month later, Clarissa packed up her office. She had accepted a role leading a new DOJ task force against financial exploitation. An email pinged. A photo from Mrs. Lucas, holding her grandkids on the porch of her saved home. Subject line, "Thank you for standing when no one else would." Clarissa smiled. Some victories don't come with applause, but they change everything.